So this is video 4 where I'm going to go through the biggest idea about the major scale. And what I'm showing you on this board here applies to any type of scale. This is the order of the sharps and the flats. It is the order of the major scales, the minor scales. It is called the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths. Either way, it's the same thing. Just depends on which direction you go. And this is one of the most important tools to learning music. That helps you devise an understanding about where you can go in music, what's available to you in that scale. It gives a lot of information. That's the point. It's a map, it's a guide, as long as you understand how to read it. So, in the previous video, we talked about there being 12 notes that are available to us. So C, if we were to go through C, D, E, F, G, A, B, E, B, C, right? I would say E. And then all these other ones that are flat notes. There are no sharps listed on here except F sharp in this case. That's important for the sake of telling us which note has a flat or a sharp in it. So if I was to say, hey, I'm in the key of C, currently I understand that the key of C, excuse where my marks are, the key of C has no sharps or flats in it. If I was to come down to the key of F, I know there's one of something, right? Now, depending on the side that the key is in, will tell us whether there are sharps or flats in it. So in this case, we're in the key of F, and it's on the flat side. It means that there is one flat note, or in this case, one black key, that we're going to play in that scale. Otherwise, that scale looks a lot like the key of C. The same if we came to decide where the sharps are. In the key of G, there is one sharp. Currently, I don't know what those flats or sharps are just yet, but I know that there's one in there because the chart tells me. So now that I know that there's one sharp note in it, it tells me that there's one black key that's going to be called a sharp. In that scale, otherwise, it looks just like the key of C. There is an order to how you determine what note is going to be sharp and what note is going to be flat. And there are some rules about that, but it all does apply to using this formula. So if I started in the key of F and used my whole half major scale formula, I know that if I start on F, and keeping in mind that I have the musical alphabet, so that means I start on F and I have to end on F, so I got at least two of my notes. I know I need a whole step, which is going to be G. I need another whole step, it's going to be A. And so here's where it gets different. Now, because I decided that I'm using the flat side, it tells me that there's going to be a half step right after the two whole steps that I just made. B flat. So now I know that I found my only one flat in that scale. If I had gone from A to B, I would be playing a whole step. And that doesn't fit my formula for the major scale. And it also doesn't sound quite like a major scale either. So listen to the difference between the major scale and then the scale that does not include the B flat. So here's the major scale with the B flat. One more time. Now, if I played that scale and put a whole step there instead of using my half step that my formula tells me, this is what I get. That scale, for future references, is a type of scale that you'll actually learn and be able to utilize, but it is not a major scale. So we've got to kind of take that into account. Again, using our formula, it tells us starting on F, full step to G, G, full step to A, half step to B flat, B flat, a full step to C, C, a whole step to D, D, a whole step to E, and then we need a half step from E to F. So now that I know that, if I was to play in the key of F, remember the key tells us where we're starting, key of F, I now can write out that I started on F, got to G, A, it's B flat, C, D, E, and F. And that follows our formula. Now if I was to swap to decide where G is, again, I'm in the key of G, so at least my starting note is G, and at least I know my last note is G. I've got all of these notes in between there. Now you can figure this out without ever having played any of the notes. What note is now going to be sharp in this, because we have our formula now. So if I was to just do this, I at least know I got G. Oh, what happens in the musical alphabet when I get to G? It starts back over. So I've got A, B, C, D, E, F. This is not a complete scale, right? There's something wrong with it. You didn't see me write any sharps, and I'm not going to write any flats because it's not on the flat side. The key of G is on our sharp side. So now I've got to use my formula. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. So I'm going to include playing it so that you can hear. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. B to C is a half step, which fits our formula. C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F doesn't quite sound right. That's a half step. Something's wrong. Our formula says that we needed a whole step right there. So now I've figured out where the sharp sign needs to be, because that note is not F, it's actually F sharp. The distance between E to F sharp is a whole step, and then F sharp to G is a whole step. Half step. So now that I've got the whole formula, that's what I was thinking about. Now that I've got the whole formula down, and I go to play the major scale, I get G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, versus the mistake that I made, which is G, A, B, C, D, E, and that is a completely different type of scale, and it is something that we can use. But currently, for our major formula, we know that the F sharp fits here. The same thing can be done no matter where we are in the scale, or where we are in any of these keys. If I chose to utilize any of those notes in any key, following that formula, I could do this without having ever been here on the piano. So I'm going to take this, I'm actually going to erase this. I know that there are notes available to me, and I know that this scale pattern is super important. So I'm going to choose, we already did C, we've been working with C, we've already done F, and we've now done G. I know that this one has 0 flats or sharps, this one has 1 flat F, and I know G has 1 sharp. So now I'm going to go through this formula, and I'm going to write, choose randomly, drop my finger on a note. We are now in the key of A. funnily enough, we've already looked at A minor, which is something completely different, but we referenced it in our previous videos, and so this is going to be important to tell the difference. We're not going to go through the minor scale formula, but we know that it looks a lot like the C major scale, so we understand that there are no flats or no sharps in this one. But the key of A, if you remember from the previous diagram before I just erased it, feel free to go back and look at it. A is on the sharp side of the diagram. And if you remember correctly, we saw that there were 3 sharps listed. So now we got to figure out what are those 3 sharps in the A major scale. So let's go ahead and write A major scale. That tells us where we're starting and what type of scale. And bare minimum, I can write A and A for starting points. And I know that the musical alphabet says A, B, C, D, E, F, and G are a part of my notes. Currently, what I just wrote is the A minor scale. Again, no sharps, no flats. If I now go through my major scale formula, starting on A, get A, I'll full step up, I get B. We know that this is a minor scale, so the formula is different. I need a full step now, so B to C, but it's C sharp. So now I have one of my sharp scales, or one of my sharp notes. The other cool thing about this is if we had used the diagram a little bit more detailed before we got to this part, I know that the A major scale has 3 sharps in it, so it's going to include the sharps from the previous scales. So we already worked with G. Now we can carry over the F sharp into the key of A. So now we're just missing one of the sharps. Which one is it? A, full step to B, B, full step to C sharp. We need a half step, C sharp to D. D, I need a full step to E. E, I need a whole step to F sharp. F sharp, I need a whole step again, and I can't play a G because that's a half step. So I need my last sharp, which is G sharp, and then I need a half step. A. Now we got 1, 2, 3 in that major scale, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 for 8. Now someone's probably going to ask me, why didn't I use sharp 3 in this one? And by some accounts, you probably could think about it that way. But there are a couple of rules to keep in mind if you were going to do that. And that's something that I don't genuinely think most of us as musicians tend to think about, but I will reference it a little bit later. Because who knows, one of you might actually think about it that way, and the fact that I thought about it that way certainly means that someone else will. So we'll touch bases on that a little bit later. But for the key of A major, randomly choosing it, I now know that it has 3 sharps, and I found all 3 of my sharps. So here's the difference between the A major scale and the sound of the A minor scale. Our major scale formula, no matter where we start, I can choose F again, I can choose D flat, I can say, hey, let's go to B, what about A flat? No matter where we are, using this formula, now that we know all 12 notes that are available to us in the musical alphabet, I can create the scale because I know what step is next. So just to do that quickly, we've already done F. B flat is the one flat that's in there. If I go to D flat, I happy, bright sound. If I start in B, whole step, need a half step, whole step, another whole step, then I need a half step. Got a major scale sound. Let's run through A flat really quickly. Start on A flat, end on A flat. Whole step, half step. We need a whole step, another whole step, another whole step, and finally our half step. Sorry about that. Now that we know, even if we don't actually know what the note names are, but we have our formula, we can kind of figure out that as long as I have the musical alphabet, I can produce the note that sounds correct. Especially if you're looking at the piano, because there are no notes and names on there, but you can see the differences between the steps. Either a white key to a white key with a black key in the middle is a whole step, or a black key to a black key with a white key in the middle is a whole step. If it is a white key to a black key, it is a half step. If it is a black key to a white key, it is a half step. Now, the other half step is if it's a white key to a white key with no black key in the middle. And that's where we said in the previous video, the notes B to C and E to F are a little bit different than some of the other things. Remember we referenced what we called enharmonics? Well, there's an enharmonic here, but there's no note in there to make them completely different. So when we're going through some of the scales, we'll see that it'll give us a half step between E to F, or it'll give us, that's E to F, I'm sorry, or it'll give us a half step between B to C. And again, that just applies to what we now need to do to get to our last note of that scale. So if you do this with all of the notes that are available to you and go through the formula, you'll be able to go through every major scale. I'll soon be including a list of all the major scales with all the formulas and all the numbers attached to them so that you can see exactly where we're pinpointing each note and each position. We'll do the same thing for the minor scales. The only difference is the formula and the number position that follows it, or at least the name of that number position. Going back through the major scales again really quickly, we're going to go through C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. If I write the comparison for F major, which we now know has one flat, we start on F, and at least we end on F. F, G, A, B, C, D, E. When we use our formula, we know that F to G is a whole step, G to A is a whole step, A to B is a whole step, but we need a half step, so B has to be B flat. That gives us our half step. B to C is a whole step, C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, and then E to F is the last half step that we needed. Let's do that comparison with the key of G, G major, which you can say you're in the key of G major, but usually we just say we're in the key of G, or we say we're in the key of C, or the key of F. Doesn't matter. Not for majors at least. So we know that there's one sharp. Again, we go back to looking at that chart that was originally written here. It's on the sharp side, so it tells me that there has to be a sharp in it. We know we start on G, and at least we know we end on G. So we can utilize the musical alphabet, so G, A, B, C, D, E, F. We know that there has to be one sharp in it somewhere, so using our formula, step, A to D is a full step, B to C is a half step, C to D is a full step, D to E is a full step, E to F is a half step, but we need a full step right there, so we have to raise the pitch. So now we have F sharp, so E to F sharp is the full step that we needed, and then F sharp to G is the half step. So now it tells us that our one sharp note is the F sharp. And if we were looking at that on the piano, it's easier to see because we've got black keys and white keys that tell us where our whole steps and half steps are. You can do the same thing with all the rest of the scales that are available to you, or the scale names that are available to you. So you've got A flat, got an A, got D, D flat, D flat, E flat, key of D, key of F sharp, key of G, flat, because you've already done G. So regardless, I haven't listed all of them, but the point is you can do the same thing without actually utilizing the piano as long as you know the musical alphabet. And what is sharp, what is flat. Again, I'm going to include that list that has all of the sharps and flats associated with it, where the whole steps and half steps are, and what those number positions are. So like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so now you can see in the key of F that our fourth note is flat, and in the key of G, where that seventh note is sharp. And that's valuable information too because it helps us create chords. It also helps us create transitions from one key to another key. And of course, using the notes to build our melodies and our harmonies. So there you go.